What's up, everybody? Kris Pursiainen here, alongside Albert Nguyen. It's all things NBA from A to Z, presented by Ball is Life, and it's live. What's up? How we doing? Welcome in. If you happen to be free at 11:40 Eastern on a Thursday, what's up? If you're listening later, we appreciate it too. It's definitely going to be like a more of an evergreen type episode, at least for the next couple days, I assume. Al, how we doing?
I'm doing great, man. I was in California for the week for Memorial Weekend, so it was nice to get away, spend time with family. I'm back now in Texas, and we have all the graduations this week. So I am not able to watch all the games. I caught the end of the blowout last night, right, with T-Wolves and OKC. But I'm definitely gonna try to tune in tonight. I think the Knicks, with or without Cat, I think the Knicks are gonna get the job done tonight. We'll see though.
I like that take. I definitely think that even if it's too little too late with regard to the series, this is a Nick team that every time they've truly every time it has seemed, and I'm someone who as someone who covers the Knicks, and like I'll be there tonight covering the game for Clutch Points. Um, I really do feel like it's and I took cues on this from Connor Hughes with SNY. Like, stay tapped in with the fan base of the teams that you cover, because it's a really good way to get a sense of uh not how to cover the team, because that's journalism, is that's up to you, but it does give you a sense of the different ways that fans might receive things. It gives you a sense of what it is that fans are talking about and what they're looking for, what they're interested in. So, it may not change my opinion on anything. It may not change what questions I ask coaches or whatever, but it may change, how long of a quote I include in a tweet, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
Like, oh, if he says something about a bench player and I normally wouldn't tweet it, but I know the fan base cares. Okay, well, the fan base cares. That is part of the job. All that said, being tapped in with Knick fans, I feel like every time that the Knicks have legitimately disappointed them this season, and I
Mm.
don't mean like, oh, they lost to the Pistons, and it's December and I'm mad. Like, yeah, I get that. I get that. But every time that the
Is
Knicks
that
have
your Tibbs
actually,
voice?
no, my Tibbs voice is much different than that. Ice. I do think there's something to, like, the Detroit series. It took them 6 games to beat Detroit. Fans weren't thrilled about the way that they kind of didn't protect home court against them. Boston series, fans were over the moon. Game 5, uh, they don't close it out. But just like in the Detroit series, they make up for it. Now Indiana, the Pacers are doing to them what the Knicks did to the Celtics, winning 2 games on the road.
Yep.
The Knicks have let their fans down big time. And yeah, you can do the argument of, oh, well, if you told the fans before the playoffs started that the team would beat Boston and make the conference finals, well, they would have signed up for losing to Indiana in the conference. It's like, okay, sure, I guess, but like, isn't the point of living life to, like, learn things and then adjust how we think because of them? Like, I don't know. So, like, why do we play the playoff games? We should just determine winners based off the preseason win predictions from Vegas. Like, what are we doing? Anyway, I do think
Speaking
I
of
do think they
Vegas,
bounce
Chris.
back tonight. I think they bounce
Yes.
back, and I think they win, because every time they seem to let the fan base down, they do seem to bounce back. And even if bouncing back won't get them into the next round, I think you'll see a bounce back tonight.
Yeah, so let me just set the stage on the betting markets, right? Just for people who are curious. Right now, the Knicks heading into game 5, they're 4-point favorites. That would suggest that Carl Anthony Towns is playing right now. He's officially questionable, but I'm sure if you ask Chris, he'd probably tell you if Cat was there in the morning shoot around or anything like that. But it's -4 Knicks. I think first half is -2.5, which is to me is a stronger look. I think the energy from the Garden crowd is going to get them a lot more focus in that first half. Full game, I still think the Knicks will cover, but man, the Pacers have been playing out of their minds in the fourth quarter. So you got to give them credit there. Some other markets here, team futures, Thunder, obviously huge favorites to win the finals. Knicks are +3,000, Pacers are +650. series markets, when we're talking Pacers, Knicks, Pacers are minus 600 to advance, and the Knicks are plus 450 to come back and win a game 7. People don't realize. I know it seems like the series is out of hand, but if they get the win tonight, Kris, all the pressure then is going to be back on Indiana, and the way that they've been closing games throughout the playoffs, I don't know if that's sustainable, one. And two, if the Knicks somehow steal that game 7, as we all know, with home court advantage, historically in the NBA has been really, really great. I think it's on the upside of 80% plus. So you just never know, man. You never know. We've seen weirder things in the NBA. It is not like this Knicks team is that inferior to the Pacers, right?
No, I don't
It's
think so.
just it's just 1 or 2 plays a game, especially in the 4th quarter, that kinda changed it, right? An 8-point game doesn't mean that it's a blowout, in my opinion. 8-point game
Sure.
just to me means that there's 1 or 2 possessions. For the Knicks, I think it's mostly defense, man. I want them to step up
Yes.
and guard guys like Mathurin and Pascal and Tyrese, but we'll get into that later.
Well, yeah, they just game 1, I think, came down to more than a couple of plays. It was several plays of just a lack of defensive attention and consistency. Game 2, I think you could say, came down to a couple plays, yeah. Game 3 came down to a couple plays, but in favor of the Knicks. Game 4, I I don't know that it came down to a couple of plays, only because it really felt like Halliburton just had his fingers all over that game. And that, like, objectively, right? You want to talk about before the series, would you sign up for, if someone told you Halliburton was going to have a huge game 4 and a Pacers win at home before the series, you would have been like, yeah, okay, and right? But the Knicks screwed themselves with game 1. Really is that's when they screwed themselves, because you could even say, right, if game 2 went exactly how it did, but they just didn't blow that lead in game 1, that now you're looking at 2-2,
Yeah.
right? So everyone talks about game 4 as like the one that got away, just because it happened the most recently. But I still think it's okay to just say, being the only team out of almost 1,000 in the last 27 years to blow a 14-point lead with less than 3 minutes to go, is why they're in this spot. Like, it's 3-1 because they lost game 1, not because they lost game 4 or game 2.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. No,
At
it
all.
makes sense. Plus, it set the stage for the series. I know it's been Knicks centric so far, and it makes sense because the Knicks are playing. Knicks and Pacers are playing tonight, but we do want to give, credit to Minnesota and OKC. But
Absolutely.
before I do that, we are live, guys. We're live right now on StreamYard, on X, on YouTube. If you have any questions, if you want to leave any comments, that'd be great for myself and Kris to kind of engage with. Right now, we have 300 people in the live, Kris. So let's continue to grow this thing. And thank you, everyone, for your support. It's been a great, season, regular season, postseason. We're going to continue to do it throughout the NBA Finals. I know Kris and I, we follow the W, so I'm sure we'll record about the W as well later.
We really should,
sometime this summer. Caitlin Clark out for at least 5 games. But no, thank you guys. Again, leave any comments. We're on StreamYard, Twitter, and YouTube, and we'll get to them. So, Kris, you want to start on the Western Conference and what happened last night?
Yeah, man. OKC's really good. And it's almost definitely is scary that they have the young players on rookie deals and that they have the draft picks that they do because of all the flexibility they have. Like, say for some reason that one of the beloved young players on OKC that isn't Shea, or even just one of the higher paid guys, right, has like a terrible finals, to the point where Indiana wins in 5 and they just steamroll them. Like, Indy 500, just speed away with that thing. What obviously, besides Giannis being like, I'm not joining that team, I'm not playing in Oklahoma City, I'd rather build something up in Miami than go that, whatever, right? Like, who knows? Other than that, I don't know why they don't have the best offer unless Cleveland decides to get really stupid.
Yeah.
Like, unless Cleveland decides to be like Mobley and Garland and Strus for Giannis and whatever picks they have, and Milwaukee's just like, all right, well, that, like, we have to that's just robbery. Like, we have to take that because this guy's leaving anyway. And you're giving us Garland and Mobley and what? So unless something like crazy like that happens, OKC definitely can have the best they have however good of a package they want to have, man.
Exactly.
Oh, well, that sounds don't love how
Pause.
don't love the phrasing on that.
Let me just cut you off then. It's hard to think about that hypothetical, Kris, just because OKC is so dominant, right? We just watched them win by 80,000 points last night. So it's hard to imagine a universe where they lose to the Pacers in 5. But let me try to get myself in that situation. OKC riding high. They're back in the finals for the first time in 2012. They have the youngest core. They have 50,000 draft picks in the next 5 years. Everything is rosy for them right now. And then they get shut down by Indiana. It would require not Tyrese. It would require the rest of those guys just to play out of their minds. I don't see it because the Thunder supporting cast is so solid. But okay. So would they go for Giannis? Giannis would say no. I think Giannis wants to go to the big markets. It's very
Sure.
clear, in my opinion, because of just reading through the tea leaves. I know you and I are both low on this guy, but what about it's the return of Kevin Durant to Oklahoma City?
Oh,
Just to
yeah.
bring
Listen,
them
man,
a
they
title,
want a
right? Bring them
second
a title
scorer.
and ride off to the sunset.
They want a second scorer. You can do like Hartenstein and Joe, or Hartenstein and Wiggins.
Hartenstein, Wiggins, and a first. I mean, Phoenix wouldn't say no. Phoenix would not say no. It's
No. I think Phoenix would really want like Topic or something.
it would be what, like you said, they can make the package as nice, roomy, girthy, big as they want, right? But it's really gonna be on Phoenix because Phoenix is not gonna get that much for Kevin Durant, in my opinion, right? And I think OKC can just provide an offer. They don't even need the Godfather offer. I think they could give their C level C level offer, and it's going to be enough. But if you think KD with Shea and Chet and J Dub, it's a pretty good team. It's a
Yeah.
pretty good team.
Yeah, it is. They just go out, get a replacement big. I don't think they'd be able to afford Steven Adams, so that would be a fun reunion too, but not going to happen. But anyway, let's talk about the Thunder, man, with what they've got right now. I think, okay, you know how sometimes like in a movie scene or even like in real life, like in a classroom, someone asks a question, they're like, all right, raise your hand if you, and then something, and everyone raises their hand. They're like, all right, you know what would be easier? Raise your hand if you haven't done this or if you didn't get this or whatever, right? And I feel like that's the way to talk about the Thunder. Like, what weaknesses do you think they have that, if it's potentially, because we have to leave the door open, like Bruno Mars, potentially the New York Knicks in the finals against the Thunder, or more likely the Indiana Pacers. What weaknesses do you see the Thunder as having that whoever their opponent is could potentially try to exploit? Have you seen anything in these playoffs that seems like an Achilles heel for them? What the hell does an opposing coach use as step one in the game plan?
It's interior physicality. We saw it with the Nuggets. They took them to game 7, and without Aaron Gordon at 100%, you never know. Maybe Denver would have stolen that series, even though we both agree OKC is the better team. But Jokic dominated that from an offensive rebounding standpoint. And Gordon, with his physical play and athleticism, was able to take Chet out of the game, right? Chet, if you look at his games this series, even though they dominated Minnesota, Chet hit his reboundings under every single game. And it's because the scheme made Chet go on the outside because he wasn't able to box out like Rudy Gobert, right? So someone like that. So maybe the Knicks providing with Mitch and Karl Anthony Towns could give them some trouble, but it's
Do you
hard
think
to.
that's part of why like Jokic was able to take him 7?
Yeah, I mean, that was basically Jokic, right? Jamal Murray had one good game. Again, Aaron Gordon was playing on, maybe like 50% for the last 2 games. I mean, but also I mentioned this several times in other shows I've appeared is OKC, just like any other team in the history of the NBA, they had to take that step, right? It's a mental hurdle that they had to get through. And it's kind of cliche to say, but we've seen it throughout history, right? Kobe, airballing those shots in Utah before they went on the run. Jordan having to lose to Detroit a few times before he was able to get past them. Even the Warriors dynasty, they lost a couple times in the playoffs and fired Mark Jackson before they, started winning. LeBron losing early. So I think OKC being the youngest team, 24 years old is insane. And they're in the NBA finals. Once they cleared that mental hurdle of beating the Denver Nuggets, and the Nuggets, we know they're not the defending champs, but it's all that championship pedigree, right? It's only been 2 years ago, and it's Jokic, and it's 3-time MVPs, and they got over that. And now I think it's like, release the hounds, man, release the Kraken. I don't see OKC getting into a situation where they're gonna shrivel up in a big moment anymore. I think they've moved past that mentally, and I think guys like Chet is gonna be so much better now moving forward because he just had to get through that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I remember during the Knicks Cavaliers series being like, and I said it so many times on this podcast, so I know the receipts are out there somewhere. Evan Mobley is just 2 years and 20 pounds away. And I remember saying 2 years and or 20 pounds away.
Mm.
Like, either give him 2 years, which all NBA in 2 years, point KP, or let him gain 20 pounds.
Yep.
Either one will be enough for him to start really impacting games. So for Chet, remember, he didn't play at all. Like, sure, he focused on conditioning, but he's been on an NBA floor with the body he has now, like only this year, because he's,
Yep.
so you get my point. I'm phrasing it sillily, but like, to me, it's interesting with OKC looking back to last year at the on-off numbers with Shea on the bench, how the offense would crater. It
Mhm.
kind of did mirror the Knicks from a
Mhm.
Western Conference
Mhm.
standpoint with regard to when Brunson was on the court. I remember there was a game, Knicks Spurs, and like the Knicks won their minutes by like 9 when Brunson was on the court, and they lost the minutes when he was off the court by 17, and he only didn't play for like 6 minutes.
Yeah. It's like
And they
Jokic
lost
this year, right?
and they lost the game.
It's
Yeah.
Denver Nuggets, Jokic on off
Yeah.
this year. Yeah.
Those are the guys to me that like should be winning MVP. Instead, we just do like who's the best player on the best team, which is why Shea should have won it this year. Like Shea was
Yeah.
the rightful choice, but Shea was the rightful choice in the way that like you get partial credit for a math problem because when you make a mistake right at the top, but then do the rest right, your
Mhm.
teacher like
That gives you a little credit.
they throw you a bone.
Yeah.
It felt like that whole thing was weird. But dude, we've touched on like 19 topics in this show. I think my brain is just absolutely all over the place today.
No, you're
Um,
good. I do wanna get I do wanna get to the Timberwolves, right? Because the
yeah,
Timberwolves, they gotten to this stage now 2 years in a row. This is very impressive. Anthony Edwards' playoff, resume is you can't belittle anything he's done. However, when he's gotten to this stage, right? Last year we saw him, get beaten up by Kyrie and Luca. This year we see him not really showing up offensively in a couple big games there. I know it's hard to blame him because he's the best player, and if he's giving you an open shot because of the way he's attacking the defense and you miss it, ultimately it's not his fault, but it is. I mean, you have to blame the best player on the team, right? Because he's going to get all the praise and accolades when they do win. So Kris, I guess my question for you is, we know Anthony Edwards is a you can call a superstar now or superstar in the making, but he is the cornerstone of that franchise. How are you going to build around him to get past this hurdle? Because OKC's not going anywhere,
Well,
right?
that's why they dealt Towns pretty much, right? Was like second apron. Okay, they assembled the team they assembled in a very brash way before the second apron existed. They got totally screwed. Like, yes, it was objectively bizarre to trade what they traded for Rudy Gobert, especially when you realize that Walker Kessler was in that package. Like, people forget that and just remember all the first round picks. Like, I I don't I'm so sorry to do this to you, man. But there's a world where we might look back and be like, man, the Rudy Gobert return worked out better than the Luka one. Like,
Hmm.
we'll see, but like, um, Utah, is kind of just sitting on their everything until nothing happens. So we'll see when they decide to kick into gear. But like, Gobert's really good. They've made the Western Conference Finals twice. Ant was the best player on the team both years. They had a different, second best offensive player each year on the team. So it shows that Ant can get it done with different teammates, different styles of teammates, right? Randall, Cat, pretty different. All that said, the Towns trade was them being like, okay, we got to take one step back, hopefully just to the side, to be able to take 2-3 steps forward. What they'll do with that flexibility that they got, I mean, you've heard Finch. He wants to play like Shannon Jr. next year.
Yep.
And I think Jalen Clark is like legit good. I don't know if this is a hot take because maybe the only people with takes on Jalen Clark agree, but I would argue that he is, after his rookie season, at worst an 80th percentile defender in the NBA.
Hmm.
Like, I think he plays better defense than 80% of the league as after his rookie year. I'm so impressed by Jalen Clark.
Let me even take a step further there. It's not only Jalen Clark and his defense, but I know he's a 17-year pro, but they have to improve the Mike Conley piece.
So small point guard makes you think Rob Dillingham. That was a bizarre move. Can we talk about that for like 8 seconds? I'll count it out. That was a bizarre move,
Yeah.
right? 2 drafts for Rob Dillingham because you felt he was going like underdrafted and having him on a rookie deal was valuable to you. Is the thought to flip him, like wait for a contender to want to tear it down or something, or a star to ask out? Like, what was the thing? If they flip him, okay, I guess I get the thinking there. If they flip him for a stud with like 1 first round pick attached, then they traded 2 firsts and a protected first for a stud player. So maybe whatever. But I don't know. It's just odd to me.
What if
What
it's the return? We're talking about returns, right? KD back in OKC.
Well, what about I was just about to say, what about KD to Minnesota?
That's interesting. I mean,
Lots of people are talking about that with
too much narrative. Too much narrative
The
with
whole Ant
him,
Edwards
and
thing.
yeah, and Edwards and KD. I was talking about D'Angelo Russell. He's an unrestricted free agent. They could
But
sign him
what is he? So, to replace Conley.
to replace. I think that's their biggest
I don't
Achilles
think
heel
that
right now is
works.
the
I
Conley
don't think
piece.
that works. And I like Russell's positional size. I
Mhm.
do. 6'5" point guard, right? But I don't, and it's not just because Mike Conley's a vet. Maybe not in the first 4 years of his career when he couldn't hit a 3 to save his life. But after that, Mike Conley's always been a savvy decision maker.
No,
And
no, no.
Russell,
He's great. He's great for what he is, but where Minnesota wants to be today and next year, he should not be the starting point guard.
I
That's a
agree, but
really
they need
strong
they
belief I have.
can they remember they wanted Tyus. They wanted
Mhm.
Tyus last offseason. He's
Julius is also I think it's player option, right? Going into this summer.
he's gonna opt into that thing
He'll
probably,
opt
right?
in. Okay.
Yeah.
Fred VanVleet. What if you trade for VanVleet?
I don't know that Houston would move
I
him.
think Houston would move him. I think it's the Amon Thompson time.
I get it. I don't. Van Vliet and Ant
Yeah, it's weird, right?
doesn't
It's
get the
weird.
people going.
Yeah.
What about Tyus Jones for a 30th of the cost?
Yeah, of course.
What about if they signed?
What if they do
Their
something what
agents
if they do
wouldn't do
something
that.
like
I was thinking Brogdon and Tyus Jones, like if they
Brogdon is
could get
also a
them
free
both
agent?
both
Yes.
on minimums,
Yeah.
but
It's not enough. It's not enough, man. They need a
oh, you
star.
know who they need?
Who?
I just solved this whole shit.
Let's hear it. Minnesota, stand up. Minnesota, stand up. He's about
I,
to tell you what to do.
I just solved their whole thing. Seriously, no joke. I just solved their whole thing. All right. Let me pull up a supporting statistic. Hold on.
Okay, while you do
The
that,
Timberwolves are no, I got it right now.
okay.
I'm just fixing the banner because we're about to save the Timberwolves. All right. When it comes to salary, I mean, well, we'd have to figure out exactly who would work, but the player to get is a guy who should be gettable, who this season with a 26.5 usage in 28 minutes a game had an 87th percentile offensive EPM, and last season with a 26.7 usage in 27 minutes per game had a 95th percentile offensive EPM. 3 straight seasons of 78th percentile or better. The last 2 seasons, 87th percentile or better. Colin Sexton, man.
That is
Colin Sexton.
I actually like that a lot. But
So you're talking about them going in a scoring guard direction
yes,
to replace Conley.
they
Okay,
need that.
let's get an elite one.
Yeah, they need that. I like that a lot. But are they going to deal with Utah again?
They should.
Are they going to deal with Utah again with all the narrative around Rudy Gobert and the 4 first-round picks and the
Rudy
5 players?
Gobert has been to 2 straight Western Conference Finals. If
He
I'm the
has been.
Minnesota Timberwolves, I'm sitting there seriously thinking I won that trade.
What if you trade him back? All right, all right. Let's move on from Minnesota.
Utah
Great
not doing
season,
it.
guys. It was
Hold on, hold on.
unexpected. No, no,
I
no.
just
No.
who
I
can they
want to. I want
trade
to move.
money wise
I
for
want to move to the
Sexton?
finals, Chris. I want to.
No, I
You
hear
look
you.
that up. I want to move to the finals, but let's give credit to Minnesota. It was a bad start to the season. They were able to turn it around, beat like legendary teams, LeBron and the Lakers. Obviously, Curry got hurt with the Warriors.
Jimmy
They
and
still
Draymond
made the
still.
Western Conference Finals. Super impressive. That's great for that fan base. But they're still one of 4 teams ever, Chris. One of 4 or 5. One of 5 teams ever that have never made the NBA Finals. So hopefully they can make some moves in the next year or two to get them past over this hump. It's gonna be tough because OKC is not gonna get any worse. But congrats, Minnesota, for a great season. So my question for you, NBA Finals, Chris. If I was OKC, who do I want to see? New York or Indiana?
Oh, if I'm OKC, I probably want to see New York. Indiana plays really fast, and they've done it all year. And the Knicks don't play as fast with the lineups that they play the most. So logically speaking, you're thinking the Knicks are going to be the more fatigued team. Also, just looking at games played per round, the Knicks played one more game in the first round and one more game in the second round. So between styles of play and total games played, Knicks have played 2 more games than the Pacers, and they're not used to the pace of the Pacers. So the Knicks are probably going to be the more tired team to an extent that I'd be like very comfortable counting on. And then also, if I'm OKC, I feel like my scheme versatility, because the fact, like, Shea, obviously, but Caruso, Joe, Williams, Wiggins, Hartenstein, Holmgren, uh, they have enough talent of enough different kinds to where I feel like I have an answer to what New York brings to the table, and that only 1 or 2 answers are needed. Meanwhile, Indiana, you need to have an answer schematically for their balanced approach and also be able to keep up. I think Mitchell Robinson would do really great on the offensive glass and on the rebounds in general against Holmgren and Hartenstein, either one. But I also think the Thunder's 3-point shooting would lose them one game in the finals against the Knicks, and win them probably 2 or 3. And then Shea's clutchness would win them one. Maybe Brunson wins the Knicks one. So you see a Thunder win in 5 or 6. Against the Indiana Pacers, they're kind of the team that feels a little bit like they could be the team of destiny for this year. It feels a little bit like Indiana, when you've just been wrong about a team over and over again, like you just kind of like unforgivingly believe in them forever because you're like, you know what, screw it, I'm always wrong, so I'm just gonna lean in here. Like maybe that's how the Thunder feel a little bit in their heads about seeing Indiana. Meanwhile, New York, all the bright lights, expectations, massive failures against Indiana that have been watched by like everybody. Those weren't hit it in the first round like the Detroit series. Those were on the jumbotron. So I'd rather see the New York. But I that doesn't mean I think Indiana is some excellent matchup for OKC. Like I think OKC. I agree with what you were saying earlier. Like I just between Shea, yes, Halliburton, elite, top tier player, and his game 4 against the Knicks is the proof of that.
Yeah.
Shea is that next level, which he every time he reminds you that he is that next level, you're like, oh my God, how does this level even exist?
Yep.
But that's what he does. That's his whole shtick. Is like
It's his aura. It's his aura is to just like downplay it, right? Yeah, so we have 1,200 people in the live. Thank you everybody for jumping on. That means a lot for us. If you're on the YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. That's all things NBA from A to Z. Leave us any comments, like any of our content, please. That really helps us out. We started with the Knicks Pacers. We're going to end with the Knicks Pacers. We're going to preview the game tonight. And if the Knicks win, I'll ask Kris how he feels about the series moving forward. But I'll just give you guys my 2 cents on the game tonight from a betting perspective, right? The Knicks are -4, favored at home, game 5. I think it's a little inflated, to be honest with you, just because of how we've seen Indiana play. And I think the way they've really been superior to the Knicks is because they've been able to win in a multitude of different ways. I think that's what hurt the Knicks. But with that said, betting is all about that one singular game. It's mutually exclusive, in my opinion, from previous games and from games going on that same day. So I actually like the Knicks tonight. I like the first half look the most, right? Knicks -2.5. I think they're going to come out and potentially blow out the Pacers in that first half. Maybe the Pacers have a big run in the third quarter or fourth quarter, like a 10-0 run to make it close. But that's how I see it. And if Nesmith is not able to go, I think Brunson's going to have a monster game, right? It's going to be like, oh, I get to play now with 2 hands instead of 1 hand tied behind my back, because Nesmith has been playing great defense. And I think that's just going to open up a lot of things for Brunson. So my 2 cents, I like the Knicks tonight. Kris, any inside information about, Cat or what you've heard from the Knicks, staff?
No, it seems like they're really trying to have him play to try and save the season. Like that's just what it was always going to be, right? Like the second he got anyone on the team got hurt to any capacity, they're always going to try and push and play to help save the season. So I assume it'll play out like this: 6:15. First question Tom Thibodeau gets asked. If it's not by someone like a national reporter who has some really specific question they want to ask and get in first question he gets asked is going to be, injury status or what's up with Carl. He will say he's a game time decision. He's going to go through his normal progressions before the game, and the staff will evaluate him then. It is his chat GPT pre-written answer every time a player is questionable for a game. Which is fine. It's the playoffs. You don't want to you don't want to bleed your hand. You want to play it cool. So that's what he's going to say. And then I would think you find out about 7, maybe like anywhere from 7:25 to 7:40. It'll come out that he's either playing or not playing. Again, third round of the playoffs.
What's your intuition? You think he's playing though, right?
Complete guess. I would think he's playing.
Yep.
Like they had OG Anunoby on 3 drugs out there like last year against Indiana. Josh was also like half dead and had some sort of like horse tranquilizers in his system. Oh, there's this video of OG, and I don't mean to be like insensitive in any way, but there's like it went very viral. I'm not saying like he was actually on drugs or anything. That's what I don't mean to be like insensitive. Like he was not, but it was just a funny viral post where OG was sitting before Game 7 against the Pacers, and he was warming, like just I think dribbling underneath his legs, and the way he was looking out into like the crowd was such like a blank stare, and everyone was like, "Oh my god." They got this guy hopped up, like to be able to play. Like poor OG, like man, he's got to be hurt. That's this Knicks team. So I would guess but that's complete guess, not rooted in anything factual.
Kris, let's talk lineups and schematics here. Just because you're in the Knicks guy, you know a lot about this team. You have a great pulse on them. And plus, I don't have the same, I guess, social media algorithms that you have, right? I'm sure we get different types of content. Yours a lot more Knicks focused. But I do see some discourse around Josh Hart. I haven't been following this team that closely, but there's some narrative around why is Josh Hart playing so much? So I guess my question for you, Kris, is if it's not Josh Hart, who would you be playing instead that would help you win this game against the Pacers and ultimately, hopefully, win the series? You're muted, Kris.
McBride. Yeah, it would be McBride. I mean, when you look at the lineup statistics, like I think it's important too to note that just because some of these Knick bench lineups have great numbers and their small sample sizes does not guarantee that they'd be as great or great at all in a larger sample. But I think the point is kind of like they didn't really try. They didn't try him. DeLon Wright was on the floor in Game 4 for some of the most important minutes of the Knicks season in their 82 plus 6 plus 6, 94, 90. In their 98th game of the season, a guy who played 230 minutes for them in the regular season after he was acquired at the trade deadline. And I consider myself decent at math. It's not that I'm not that great. If we do 230 minutes divided by 48 minutes, he played the equivalent of 4.8 full games for the Knicks. As a bench player, let's triple that. So let's say 15. He played in 15 games for the Knicks in the regular season, and barely played in those games. But you know what? You get my point here. Trying to spread it out, whatever. This guy's on the floor with 20% of the onus in one of the most important parts of the season in a lineup that like they know damn well they have not synergized with each other at all because they don't play. I do feel like Thibodeau was going to play Shamet. I think Wright kind of got thrown in there because McBride had 3 first quarter fouls in Game 3, and you know they kind of had to change things from there. I'm very interested for someone, maybe I don't know who, maybe myself if no one else, to ask Tom Thibodeau about how the starting lineup change affects his rotational decisions, kind of down the grapevine, because Robinson and McBride, after Robinson was moved to the starting lineup, played less in the last 2 games than he did in Game 2. Josh Hart played more in the last 2 games than he did in game 2. And yet they were swapped for each other in the starting lineup. So not much of a change was made. It did result in the time that the Knicks starting lineup for the first 96 games, their worst 5-man their worst 5-man group this season. It reduced the time that they were on the court. Game 1 did have overtime, but they played for 26 minutes. Game 2, 15 minutes. Game 3, 11 minutes, right? But still not spectacular, like to have your worst lineup all season that has been a bad lineup all season play even just a fourth of every playoff game. So it's going to be tough. I do think the Knicks should have gone with McBride over Robinson in the starting lineup in the first place in game 3 in this series. But that said, I put out a thread yesterday, and we can close on this note. I think 3-1 comebacks are happening and will happen in playoff series and in the NBA more and more as time goes on because of kind of like one factor that has a 1A, 1B, or like a 1 and then like a 1 footnote, whatever. 3-point shooting, the greater volume leads to more variance in scores, in results. There's going to be a time. It will happen at some point where one of the best teams on the planet can't hit the side of a barn after going up 3-1, and some scrappy, hungry team is going to put together an and one mixtape of like tween, hezzy, dribble, cross, split hacks, sham god, step back, fading threes. And they're going to go in and they're going to come back and win the series. And everyone's going to be like, that's the most insane comeback in sports history besides the Cavs. And then it's going to happen again in the next decade. Like, I think we'll see it happen a little bit more and more. But there are only 3 teams in this year's NBA playoffs that took, and I say took because they are all already eliminated, fewer 3-pointers per game than the Knicks have thus far. They are, actually, you want to guess?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, all right. So it's the Rockets, the Magic, and the Pistons. I feel like that's pretty unsurprising, right? Like those feel like the 3 teams that would take the least threes or took the least threes in these playoffs. The Knicks take the 4th least. They took 33 point something a game in the regular season. They're down to 31.8 now in the postseason. Excuse me. They took 33 point something or 32 point something in last year's regular season, 31.8 in last year's playoffs. So think about this. The Knicks in last year's postseason averaged 31.8 3-point attempts per game. With Anunoby firing away, Hart was taking threes all over the place, Dante DiVincenzo. You know, then they go out and they trade for Karl Anthony Towns. And to the 10th decimal point, 31.8 3-point attempts per game this postseason, last postseason. Exact same number. Exact same decimal. So, like, all that said about the 3-1 comeback and the statistics and the variance and the other large words, I don't think this Knicks team is going to be one of those teams that makes that comeback. And maybe that's exactly why they'll do it. Maybe the fact that I really have methodically thought out and tried to intelligently think through why this won't happen, why it's unlikely. Maybe that's exactly why it'll happen, right? Because that's what happens in sports. The best thing about sports is the unpredictable. That's why we talk about it, ultimately, right? That's why people hated Warriors Cavs for 4 years straight. That's why people are loving 7 different champions in 7 different years. But you got to pick a side. And I can't just sit here with you and waffle and go, oh, a 3-1 comeback probably won't happen. but it could happen, but it probably won't, but it could. That's what they do on national TV. I don't get paid to do that, so I don't have to do that, so I will not do that. I don't think the Knicks come back. I think the Pacers have exhausted them. Um, I think the Pistons' physicality wore them down just a tad. I
Mhm.
think the Celtics, the mentally wore them down a little bit, and this Pacers series is wearing them down mentally and physically. So I would say Pacers in 6 because, like we said, the Knicks do tend to bounce back,
Yep.
and they tend to show up one last time. When they need to. So with all that said, Al, what do you got? 6?
Yeah, I would Pacers in 6 makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'm only on one bet, it's Pacers plus 1.5 games, so that already cashed for me.
Ha.
But there has been 13 instances, right, throughout NBA history since 1968 with a team coming back from a 3-1 deficit in the playoffs. Most notably is the 2016 Cavs, but even more recent, we had the 2020 Nuggets come back from 3-1. So it's definitely doable. But and we'll have an NBA Finals preview
Oh,
or
for sure. Easily.
podcast or whatever. But props to shout out to Middle America, right? OKC and Indiana, if they both make the NBA Finals, that's crazy. That's good for the NBA. You know, I'm one of those guys that love big markets, but it's good to have these other markets get a lot of shine, and not only from a market perspective, but it's cool to let these players, right, that are playing in these markets get some shine as well. So cool for them. And then, Kris, I know you have one final point, and then please close this out for us.
Oh, well, my final point is just to thank our viewers, dude. Just say thank you to the viewers. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Just about 1,400 of you at this moment. So keep tuning in. Follow Al and myself. I'll put our ats up on the screen here. Yeah, thanks for hanging out. We went live the other day after Knicks game 4 with the Pacers. We went live after Knicks Pacers game 1. Went live after Thunder Wolves game 1. Now live ahead of or after the Thunderwolves series / ahead of Knicks Pacers game 5. So as we hit 1,400 viewers, I will tell you all to remember this stream will be saved in its entirety, all 47 minutes, on both Twitter and YouTube. You can go to the All Things NBA YouTube and hit subscribe. What I would do personally, because this is what I do with my channels that I don't want to miss out on stuff with, I hit the notification bell. I can always just ignore it, but then that way I never miss when a stream is going live. So I at least give myself the chance to see if I'm free or not. So you can go ahead and do that if you want. Go on Twitter or YouTube, follow and subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. I will be at Madison Square Garden tonight covering game 5 for clutchpoints.com. I do national NBA coverage there. So stay tuned to my Twitter feed as well for exclusive coverage from game 5 at MSG. And other than that, check out Ball is Life. Go give Al a follow. Our guy Zach Noble, our fellow co-host, not able to make this one, but as you guys know from the other stream, he's around. He'll be back. Thanks for tuning in. That's enough outro for now. Peace. We will see you soon. Hope everyone has a great day, great rest of their week.